really, really crazy. But let's get started and check this video out, boys. I'm gonna have this on my side monitor, right? Hope you guys don't mind. Pause the music, of course. Put my character in a nice place. The RuneScape documentary, 15 years of adventure. And this was 8 years ago. Holy. Guys, this game has been out for so long. Holy shit. It's almost old as me.
In 3 words, goodbye real life.
Yo! Goodbye real life, guys. Yeah. On day 9, guys, we're playing a lot.
No. Okay, okay. I would say, if you can count as 3 words, best MMO ever. Definitely.
Ole mole. Year of adventure. Yo, this is epic.
This is the story of a world created in a kitchen. Of a community bonding as they kill chickens or fish for sharks. It's a sneaky peek behind the scenes of an online world. Of its highs and lows. And an attempt to solve something of a mystery. How a video game can still be loved and relevant after 15 years.
When I made this game, I thought it'd be just like any other, and go online, maybe a few people play it, and then that would be it. And certainly didn't expect it to still be running 15 years later.
No way.
A few people play it, and then that would be it.
Wait, this was the first? This was the first?
Certainly didn't expect it to still be running 15 years later and still be being developed 15 years later. It's quite unbelievable just how big the game became. I still can't quite believe it.
But what is RuneScape? Many people won't even have heard of it, yet it's a game that holds 6 Guinness World Records and seen more than 240 million accounts created.
Holy!
Quietly, it's become incredibly popular. Let's put it in perspective. If RuneScape were a country, it would have the 5th largest population in the world.
Yo!
It would have 63% of the population of the USA. It would have 3.2 times the population of the UK. And 8.9 times more than Australia. RuneScape could definitely take Australia.
For me, RuneScape is the ultimate
That's crazy.
adventure. You have the opportunity to be a hero in a medieval fantasy world, saving people's lives, killing dragons, all sorts of really fantastical things. And it's an experience that you share with thousands of people at the same time. There's mystical, magical properties to the world. So there are goblins.
Is this a new one?
There are orcs and elves and things like that. We never take things too seriously. Yes, you might be battling against forces that are trying to blow up the planet, but you always get a bit of a
What the
kind of
heck?
nudge, nudge, wink, wink joke that the players really, really enjoy.
This is about
I broke
RS3?
my hammer on a hiker last
Wait,
week.
this is about
We've got this course
RS3?
running through it all of
Where's the
gods
OS
that stomp
RuneScape?
about our game world, claiming followers, and then trying to become this single god entity for this entire universe.
You can do whatever you like, and that's the
It's
fun
about
part about
both,
RuneScape,
guys.
what
It's
sets
about
it apart
both.
from everything else.
Weekly updates across 15 years.
Honestly, I feel like RS3 is probably like retail WoW, right? I think that's what it is. And I know classic WoW players hate retail, and retail players like get upset at that, and then they have a war. Is old school RuneScape like that too, where OSRS hates the new one, and then the new guys like, is it a little battle? Okay. For me, I've come to a conclusion that both games are fun in its own way. Personally, talking about retail World of Warcraft versus classic WoW, right? It has their goods and bads, right? It's a different ball game, basically. And maybe RS3 is kind of like that with old school RuneScape. Let me hear from you guys. Yeah? Okay. RS3 is ass compared to retail WoW? Damn! But OSRS isn't. OSRS is Giga Chad. Okay. Well, I'm saying this because I know there was a lot of people saying like, boo, let's go RuneScape 3. And then there was one guy in the chat like, guys, stop, please. I love RuneScape 3. And I felt bad. I was like, damn, maybe we are being too mean as a community, you know? Yeah.
You always have something new that you can do the next day.
Us
I
as
felt bad for that
players,
one guy.
We have the power to contribute to this ever-growing world.
RuneScape represents exactly the type of virtual world that I prefer to live in.
So much can happen in the fantasy world. You know, magic exists.
Dude, that guy's a
treasures,
gamer.
Adventures, monsters threatening to rip your face off, exploration. All the things that we dream about, we read in fairy tales.
It's a very social game. I like that. It's if I'm in the mood to just
Young
want to
Bo-
chill
wait,
out
Young
and talk
Bodhi
to
was it?
people, I play RuneScape.
That sense of exploration and discovery is far more powerful in a game like RuneScape than most any other MMO.
8 billion fish are caught in RuneScape every year. And every minute, over
Calm down, guys. Jeez.
2,000 cows are slain, which would make more than 3.5 million burgers in that minute. But that doesn't begin to explain the very strange beast that is RuneScape. Where did it come from? How has it become so popular? Well, to find out, you have to rewind back to the glorious 1980s.
The 80s saw a lot of cliche coming up, you know, bedroom coders make their games. And that's very important, that sort of ability to, with a small team, in many cases, brothers. There's a load of different brothers who started up games companies, and the Gowers are one such set.
I grew up in Nottingham with my family and my brothers Paul and Ian, and we were always very much a gaming family. Played lots of board games and computer games growing up. Played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons with my brothers and my dad, and he was always the dungeon master, and we were always exploring the dungeons. And I think that gave a lot of the sort of inspiration for a lot of the the games I did, particularly my love of sort of role-playing games and things like that.
They got lots of imagination. They were always playing imaginary games, acting out things.
There was a very early fantasy game I played probably when I was about 5, but that was an early fantasy game called Sorcerer's Cave, which is a game where you lay out big tiles on the floor and you basically get
it's a
to
card
explore a
game.
dungeon as a character, and probably give me a little bit of influence on what I do even.
I'm so happy. I mean, there's still board games, but I'm so happy we're born in an era where we have computer games, chat. So happy. I feel like most of us got to grow up with like technology evolving from like Game Boy Black and White to Game Boy Advance to SP and to DS. You know what I mean? Like we got to like grow up with it. I feel like it's so cool. Most of us, right? And we get to see like the internet like evolving so fast. It's crazy.
But then, you know.
Paul used to do really detailed pictures of
The Game Boy
castles
Color.
and pirate ships. And
Damn, these are some
all
good
sorts of
drawings.
inventions. There's one called the Battler. And they told the others stories about them. He invented a whole range of characters, and a lot of it was based on what we did. You know, we used to go to castles and go to the seaside, and it was a sort of fantasy version of that.
I first got into computer programming when I was 7 years old, and my dad had a ZX Spectrum, and it came with a book of little programs you could type in.
The funny thing was, I actually bought a book specifically for Paul and another one for Andrew. Paul was far too interested in writing all his fantasy stories and...
Dude, we need to thank and respect these people. Now we just go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT, Jarvis, do my homework. Man, everything's becoming so much easier now. These guys are the pioneers.
Imaginative games to be bothered with tedious computer programming. So once Andrew whistled through his book in no time flat, he then got hold of Paul's book. And to my great astonishment, he then started spending virtually all his time on it.
The first program I made
dedication
myself,
right there.
Just walked across the screen. It was very simple. I was only 7, but I was ever so excited by the fact that I could do that, and it went from there really.
Oh my god, I think I played this in my school back then. I played something very similar. But you have to
It's very
solve
hard to
math
pry something away
problems.
from the computer sometimes. Occasionally, my parents would be like, "Go out and go for a walk, have some fresh air," and I'm just like, "No, I'm sticking on the computer. I know it's a sunny day outside, but I'm in the rhythm."
One of us. One of us.
I mean, I really did just spend my whole teenage years just writing computer games. I just absolutely love making them, and most of them were my own takes on things that I either couldn't afford initially or which hadn't been ported to the Atari ST later, but I always tried to put my own spin on things and make it a bit original. One game I particularly remember making, there was a computer game, a very famous computer game called Lemmings that came out for the Atari ST, and I really wanted to play it.
Dude, I saw my older brother play this. I was like 4 years old and I wanted to play. I think he let me play it once, but I killed all his guys like falling off a cliff or something. But I remember my brother playing this, my oldest brother. Holy shit.
But I didn't have
Holy
enough money
shit.
to be able to buy it. I couldn't fork out the £20 it cost, so I decided to make my own copy.
We'd not actually played Lemmings at the time, but so
That's
we didn't
so
find out how it
cool.
worked, which was a good thing because it meant it came out a bit different. But it was a game where you had to make little ramps and stuff to move the ball bearings from the start to various obstacles to the exit. And Andrew did the coding, and I did most of the level design for that.
I was very proud of that game because it was the first game I'd made, which I sort of looked at it and thought, wow, actually doesn't look like it's been made by a kid. It's actually, a reasonably playable game. I very much wanted to make one of everything, so I'd sort of go, right, I've made a strategy game, now I need to make an adventure game, and I've made an adventure game, but I haven't made a shooter game yet, and I kind of wanted to see if I could make every type of game.
What the fuck? This guy's the GOAT!
After leaving school, Andrew moved away from his family home to study computer science at Fitzwilliam College in Cambridge.
When I got there, took my computer with me, desperately worried it was going to get broken in the car because this is the one I'd spent a whole year saving up for. Got it all set up and discovered that the rooms had an internet connection. I said to my friend, and I never lived it down, I don't think I'd use it. Obviously this turned out to be completely, utterly false. And then a few weeks later I caved and got myself a network connection, and I was immediately intrigued by the fact that there was online games you could play.
Games played in a web browser were becoming increasingly popular, and sites started popping up
I
that
used
hosted
to
them.
love
One
these type
such
of
site,
games. That
Games
game
Domain,
right there.
contacted Andrew and asked
Oh
if he'd
my
be interested
God.
in making games for them.
The biggest game that I made for them was a thing called Castle Games Domain, and this was a multiplayer games parlour, and this was by far the most popular thing I made for them. It regularly had 200 to 300 people sort of playing games at once. You could go in there and you could always get a game. And I managed to get Ian to do some of the graphics for me for Castle Games Domain and quite a few of the Games Domain games I did actually.
I absolutely jumped on that opportunity.
I'm nerding out. This is so cool.
So he would email me a list of requirements. I would email him the graphics back again, and they would get put into the game.
The funny thing was the money I got from Games Domain far eclipsed the amount I got for my paper round. And I sort of thought, I spent a whole year saving up for this, and I made it back in like a couple of weeks. If only I could have taken a loan. I started thinking, I wanted to make a game a bit more for myself. That I wasn't going to sell to someone else. It was going to be my game. And one of my favourite games online at the time was a text-based game called Nanvent, which was a MUD that you could play online. And I loved the fact that you could play it any time, day or night, and there'd always be someone there. You could log in at 3 o'clock in the morning and there'd be some person, killing monsters and talking and chatting. And there was loads of these out there. And, trying to make one that would stand out from the crowd would be very, very difficult. Because one of the key features of these games was that you didn't need to install any software. You could just connect to their server using Telnet and play. And I wanted to get that same play it on any computer, carry on where you left off aspect, but with graphics. And because I knew how to do Java games, I realised I could combine the two together and make basically a graphical MUD with all the benefits that a MUD would normally have. And when my friend Pete heard out that I was making a graphical MUD, he said to me, I've got a game a bit like that I've been playing on my computer. It's called Ultima Online. Would you like to see it?
This, Britannia, is but one of many in the multiverse that is Ultima Online.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and I played that. I was like, this is exactly what I'm trying to make. But I didn't get to play it very much, which was probably just as well, because it meant my game didn't come out too similar.
Holy, was this the GOAT or what back then?
Till now, I never specifically heard that Ultima, was an inspiration for RuneScape. But there's been sort of this wave of people younger than me joining this industry throughout my career.
What's
and so when you do the same thing for so long, it means that you get the opportunity to set a few standards and for the younger group to come in and have had a chance to look at it first.
Wait, this game looks cool.
Finally
Holy
got to the
shit.
point where it worked, and decided to put it online as a little test that it worked. Didn't have any servers, so it just ran on my computer in my room, and just didn't switch it off. And probably only about a handful of people ever played Devious Mode. Just a few people that I knew at Games Domain who I invited to give it a go. And then after a week of running it, I got enough feedback and I shut it down and carried on working on it.
Was the very, very early precursors of RuneScape.
No way.
Andrew graduated and found himself in demand. He was offered 2 jobs, one with his friends at Games Domain and another by a guy called Constant Tedder, who ran a competitor, GamesWire. But like a true entrepreneur, Andrew decided to strike it alone and remain self-employed.
I decided, the time was right to pick Devious Mode back up and see if I couldn't finish it off. So started it again.
This guy looks
Took
young.
everything from the previous year or two, and started making an improved version of it, which I decided to call RuneScape.
RuneScape as a name, I think we sort of came...
Holy Varrock! Alcarid? Yo, this is our game right now. This is crazy.
We just sort of by throwing ideas around between us,
Balador?
throwing down lots of sort of fragments of words, and then trying them together in different combinations.
That's
and
cool.
seeing what sounded good. And of course, also checking that the domain name was actually free.
Yes, our
RuneScape as a
game,
name.
guys, our
The original version of the logo was just the name RuneScape in a straight line on the stones, but all of our friends were sort of joking around. They kept calling it RunEscape. So at that point, I split the line of stones in 2 and put the sword through the middle just to make sure there could be no ambiguity whatsoever. This was RuneScape, not RunEscape.
One of the things I was always very keen to have in from the start was the ability to make it quite easy to add content to the game. This was quite a common thing for text-based mods anyway, so I decided I'd come up with my own scripting system, which I called RuneScript. I realised that with this scripting system, up until this point, Paul had always come up with a lot of the ideas and the level designs for my games, but he wasn't a programmer, and I'd always had to implement everything he came up with, and I always found that he could come up with the ideas far faster than I could actually implement them. And so by creating this scripting system, I realised that I could actually get Paul to implement the ideas himself, and we could sort of alleviate a little bit of that imbalance.
The early experiments which I was doing to learn how to use Andrew's map editor and RuneScript actually ended up making it into the game in some form or another. So when I was learning how to use the RuneScape map editor that Andrew had created, I actually
no way, that's the first comment we
how
see.
to use the RuneScape map editor.
Wanna be my GM? There's no way. That's the first comment, bro. I guess back in the day and today's the same thing where guys are trying to rizz up the girls, huh? Sheesh.
That Andrew had created, I actually made Lumbridge and Lumbridge Castle, and it was quite for making a great big castle, and it was
That's
ended up being the
crazy,
starting
guys.
point for the game. The first character which I created just to make sure that I could do character conversations was a character called Hans, which is still a character who wanders around Lumbridge Castle. We made the first quest very early on, that was Cook's Assistant. A lot of it was inspired by LucasArts style graphic adventures as well, especially Monkey Island and Dare the Tentacle. A lot of the way the conversation system worked was based on that, so you've got all sorts of comical options for what sorts of things to say.
This must be that Woodstock place Mom and Dad are always talking about.
So finally, in
Holy.
January 2001, I got RuneScape to the point where I felt like I could actually launch it and give it to the public.
Holy!
And then we all logged on and created our characters, and then
Dude, that looks like the most average bloke. That's crazy. I love that they changed it to what we have now. I'm so happy.
Andrew went over to Castle Games Domain because they knew that he was making RuneScape and told the game players in there, hey guys, RuneScape's launched. So a bunch of players came over from Castle Games Domain, and they were the first players of the game.
It was far more popular than we could possibly imagine. Initially, we only had one game world, and that filled up very quickly. And we had to quickly set up more game modes to take on the extra people that were online. There was always someone playing the game.
And I was trying to do this against the clock because there was more players coming in every day, and I was frantically trying to.
I was there. Type 1 if you were here, right there, guys. Type 1 if you played since then. Oh my goodness, what was I doing in 2001? I might have been playing. Was Warcraft 2 out by then? I think I might have been playing Warcraft 2 or something. Was Diablo out in 2001? I don't know. I played Diablo 2 and Warcraft 2 a lot, and then Warcraft 3 later along the line. But I don't know if it was there. Wait, there are some people that's been playing since then. Yo, you guys are the veterans who fed RuneScape to keep going. Thank you guys, huh? Nah, they're lying. You guys are lying to me? There's a lot of ones, man. I'm not sure. Kick is not lying. Kick is yeah, humble right there. Few people in YouTube, of course. 98% of the people typed 1 are liars. Damn. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Maybe some of them are actually
to keep up with the number of players. I didn't want to turn anybody away. RuneScape launched at a very interesting time because it was just as the internet was becoming a big thing. It was just sort of joining the dot-com bubble slightly after, but internet gaming in particular was still taking off. Online games were just becoming a thing.
Back in the day that I used to play in the 1970s, Dungeons and Dragons had a tremendous appeal, and the internet was now allowing these people to join up together without having to sit in the same room with each other.
Imagine choosing any name and personality you want to be and then playing other people from all over the country on your personal computer.
The fact that broadband became faster and faster and better in people's homes and cheaper really meant that online games and the internet kind of transformed distribution mechanisms.
It was an independent, self-published game in a time when there wasn't really independent self-published games. We were one of the few people who was actually able to publish our own game. The fact that you could play it without having to install any software, you could just play it in your web browser, it meant it got a big following in schools where people could play it in their lunch break, and then they could play it when they got home, people could play it in libraries. I mean, I think that really helped the spread. And then disaster struck.
Too many people
Clicks
playing.
and mortar firms have flourished, but many pure internet companies have had problems this year. Back in March, 4 net-only firms entered the FTSE 100 because their share prices ranked them as a top UK business. Since then, their valuations have tumbled over 70%. No wonder even casual investors are becoming fussier.
The advertisers pulled the plug, they didn't want to buy adverts off me anymore. I suddenly got to the point where the amount of advertising revenue wasn't even enough to cover the hosting costs, and I didn't have a lot in the way of savings, and I was like, I can't afford to run this game, it's costing me money to run it, I'm going to have to shut it down. And I really didn't want to shut it down because I'd spent, well over a year making it by this point, poured everything into it. It was really popular, there's probably about 600,000 people playing it by this point, and really didn't want to shut it down, so a bit of an emergency. So the first thing I did was trying to save money. I moved back to my parents' house in Nottingham.
We actually used half of our parents' kitchen, so Mum put a curtain subdividing the 2 separate bits of our kitchen together and turned half of it into an office, and then we spent about 6 months working for our parents' kitchen.
That's passion right there, guys. That's why this game is good. These passionate people quitting their work, moving home to save money, working on it every single day. Goodness, that's how you win, guys. And W parents for believing in them, because maybe at that time it was hard to believe them,
Terribly squashed in. I do remember I couldn't get in to load the washing machine because the computers were all around it.
We could all work together properly, we weren't having to rely on email, and of course we were all playing board games again together as we always have done.
They were going around the house with a microphone looking for interesting sounds.
I remember the cooking sounds.
They worked so you could AFK in Fossil Island.
And my mum happened to be frying some bacon one day, and I was standing there with the voice recorder recording it, and the sound of cooking in RuneScape Classic is the sound of my mum frying some bacon.
I was a primary school teacher, so it was a school holiday. So I got the time, and I've always loved drawing. So I said I'd have a go, so I did 4 animals for him. I had a camel, a bear, a spider, and a bat. And they're all still on Classic.
I did bits and pieces, even though I wasn't much of a graphics artist. I did the RuneScape Classic Cow, was my proudest graphical achievement in RuneScape Classic.
Damn.
After 6 months of working from home, the game was still costing more than it was making. While anyone else would have thrown in the towel, the brothers looked at other options to keep the game running.
We thought about making a members version in the hopes that enough people would want to subscribe.
At this point, I realised that if I was going to start charging the users for playing the game, it was going to be becoming a much more commercial operation. I was going to have to do things a bit more seriously. I wasn't going to be able to just ignore people's customer support emails, and I didn't really know anything about running this sort of business. I was a bit anxious about taking money off the users directly, and I thought to myself, well, there was that chap who contacted me, who I nearly set up a business with, Constant Header. I wonder if he'd be interested in turning this into a proper business where we actually charge a subscription.
Constant was still interested and took them up on their offer. He took on the position of CEO, and they prepared RuneScape to accept paid members.
We sort of figured we need 3,000 people to subscribe out of our 600,000 or so players to cover our hosting costs. Within the first couple of days, we had 5,000 subscribers, and we're like, we're saved! We've got enough! We're not going to have to shut the game down.
The community, the player base just sort of overwhelmed us in terms of the number of people we took in, even just in that first day.
And I was in a real rush to get the business set up and recruit some staff. Started looking around for an office, found a little sort of incubator for startup businesses called the St. John's Innovation Centre. Went to them and said, need an office, I need it now. We've got people paying for the game, we haven't got any staff to answer their emails, and how soon can you get me an office? And they're like, you can have it tomorrow. I was like, yeah, office tomorrow, signed the contract. Had a number of people coming in for an interview that didn't have any furniture at this point, so the interview taking part in a completely empty office with nothing in it.
Andrew was interviewing people while myself and Constant were wandering in and out of their little office with desks and computers and setting them up behind them, which was probably quite a distracting way to have one's interview.
And I remember the night before sort of frantically Googling sort of like, how do you interview someone? What did you ask at an interview? What are you supposed to do?
My interview was awesome because it was just a room and there was just a table with a laptop on it and Andrew, and that was it. And I thought, what have I sort of stepped into? And he said, can you type something? And I remember Andrew kind of watching me type, and then it was like, great, all right. And then
that was brilliant.
I mean, dude, if you knew how to type back then, you were kind of up there in the level, because most of the people were like, in Korea, they call them eagles, because you like pick the keyboard and you go like tick, 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 looking at them, right? Like back then, people didn't know how to type, man. Not eagle, like eagle.
I mean, to start off with, our company was so small.
No, most of the people know how to type these days. There's no way.
Was to build their desk and construct their desk and set up their computer. We didn't have any staff who did that sort of thing. We didn't.
When I started, there was one other person, and that was it.
Yeah.
We didn't have the internet. There was RuneScape was running off servers, but we didn't have any internet in the office. And then it was like that week, some point, we got dial-up.
Just like it had grown fast in terms of number of players in the first year, in the second year it was a very rapid growth of the number of people paying for the game, and then we moved office incredibly frequently.
I like the fact that we just knock a hole in the wall and just expand.
I remember Andrew's room though. We used to have about 5 monitors set up. I remember him having this banging trance music.
Yeah, there was like
a screen of code here and something here, and there was this really thumping techno, and I was blown away by that.
I'd grown up looking at things like MUDs, multi-user dungeons, and I had been a role player all my life, so running sort of Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and things like that. And the first time I looked at RuneScape, it looked like a graphical MUD. And I always got frustrated with a lot of online games that they just didn't take their storytelling very seriously. And I was engaging with this quest, and there were nice little character dialogues. And even though the graphics were incredibly simplistic compared to the games I was playing on my consoles at the time, there was something about it, something that really kind of resonated with me as a storyteller, but also someone who, wanted to explore the kind of potentials that the internet had to offer. And it just grabbed me. And I thought, I'm going to give this a go.
As well as recruiting a lot of customer support staff, I was also actually spending an awful lot of time trying to create the systems to support them, because it was all one thing having people in to answer the emails, but so initially there wasn't actually anything they could actually do for people. So people would say, I've lost my password, and there was nothing they could do about it. There was no way they could verify that they were the right phone, and they couldn't even reset the password.
Everything was done by email, so you had like all the reports from players saying, I'd lost my dragon helmet and all the rest of it, and they all came into your inbox. So after a while, I had about 1,000 emails in my inbox, and I was just like, I don't know how to answer these people,
So I think there was probably about sort of 20, 30 different systems that we actually ended up making in-house, all each of which did a different function just to support the game.
I guess the weirdest thing was that people with outside experience would come in and used to things working in a certain way, and we did them completely differently. So I think that's why for such a long time we actively did not look for people with proper industry experience, because actually it wasn't any good to us. And it was kind of good, because if you needed the system to do something, you could just go and ask for it, which was pretty cool, really.
RuneScape's first incarnation was a little rough around the edges, but it was revolutionary.
I'm so happy this is not the graphic.
For its time. It was an online world of adventure.
I mean, this doesn't look bad, actually, when they have the armor, but when they have like pants and jeans on, and they look like K-Konas, that does not look good.
Players could slay dragons, hone skills, and make friends. Best of all, it could be played on even the, well, shonkiest PC.
It's like fucking Elon Musk walking around.
But
what is that?
stays still in the tech world for long, and it was time for RuneScape to get a makeover.
So around about 2003, 2004, we actually started getting on top of things a little bit more. It was no longer quite such a sort of breakneck day to day, just trying to keep up with whatever crisis or surge of growth or new thing was happening that day. We actually were able to catch our breath and think, what next? So I decided to start making a new version called RuneScape 2.
How old are these guys? I can't believe they've made so many games. He looks young. Because if you look at all the OG WoW devs, they're respectfully, they're older, right? But these guys are young. In 40s? Dang, man. He made this when he's very young. That's impressive.
Total rewrite the code base.
Very impressive.
Fixed all sorts of things that I didn't like about the original version. And I also took the opportunity to upgrade the graphics.
He completely rewrote the whole scripting language, and it was far more flexible, but it meant we had to rewrite the entire game effectively from scratch.
It was kind of
2004. Bro, this guy played 18 hours a day.
Risky, because we had a lot of people who were really dedicated to RuneScape, and whilst we as a bunch of developers thought that it was good to do certain things, the community didn't necessarily agree with us. So when we first put the beta live, this new shiny version of RuneScape, there was a lot of fear from the community, well, is it going to work like this? Is it going to work like that? The value of my item's going to be affected. It was quite a big deal for them.
And we were desperately worried that if we upgraded the version of the game, we could lose a lot of players. So we thought, well, we'll just keep the old version online just in case.
These people were playing the game, 5, 10 hours, 15 hours a day, every single day, and it was one of the most important things in their life. So you had to be really, really mindful of that.
As it actually happened, when we finally managed to launch it for real, almost everyone did actually move to RuneScape 2, and only a very small number of people stuck with RuneScape 1, so perhaps we didn't need to worry as much as we did. Around about the same time that we launched RuneScape 2, we also signed a deal with a third-party website called miniclip.com, which was a portal.
A lot of people going there to play free.
Oh my god, what the fuck? I forgot about this website. Type 1 if you played stuff here, man. Mini clips. Wow. That's crazy. I forgot. There was also another one called Flash Player, I think. And by the time Newgrounds was known, I was already playing WoW, so I didn't really play Newground. That's cool though.
Oh look, what's this RuneScape thing? That looks cool. And we just got a lot of traffic. Huge amounts of traffic.
But we suddenly had so many players signing up at the same time that our account creation system couldn't handle the load, and it actually keeled over. This breakneck speed I was talking about up to this point was going up like this, and all of a sudden it turned a massive corner and went up even faster. That suddenly meant what we thought was incredibly fast paced suddenly looked very slow.
I actually 100% can remember us having a conversation and thinking we're having too many players too quickly. Because we couldn't hire staff quick enough, we couldn't build servers quick enough, and Andrew, honest to God, was like, maybe we should stop account creation, because we just couldn't deal with that kind of rush of people. But it was great, right?
Too much success.
It was
Suffering from success.
Everyone was kind of mucking in and doing bits of everything.
Yeah, you had to.
Every time we came down to Cambridge to see them, they told us how many more players there were.
Yes, the new number was always significantly bigger than the last time I'd seen them. It was quite impressive, really. Once you got up to 50 people in the office, that was...
That was the team. Yo, shout outs to these guys. Shout out to these guys. Making this beautiful game so I could AFK and farm some crabs on the side, huh? Sheesh.
An impressive milestone as well. You kind of think, a firm of 50 people, wow.
With the game beginning to take off, Andrew and Constant wanted to reward their staff, and they found a foolproof way of doing so.
Constant devised a jolly system where we would reward the staff when we hit certain mile points and certain numbers of subscribers.
That's a fun boss.
Go paintballing.
Boss.
Speedboat, all sorts of sort of fun sort of events. And he set it out with a number of subscribers as a target for each different one. And it went all the way up to sort of 100,000
Good company.
A weekend in New York. And I remember when he produced the list, I was like, we're never going to hit 100,000 subscribers.
What the fuck was that? The strip club.
I think at one point there was like 4 or 5 jollies stacked up, and like everyone was moaning.
At least, yeah.
Like, we haven't been on a jolly for a couple of weeks. It's 4 or 5 still to take. Like, it was so hard to try and get enough time to go on it.
They were like 25,000 apart, or something like that. I remember in 1 week we hit 2 targets just in 1 week, and when we originally wrote them, we were expecting them to be 2-3 months apart or something like that.
It didn't really hit home until a member of staff that would recruit mentioned to me that he hadn't actually done a 5-day week since starting for us.
That's cool.
One thing that was always really nice about developing RuneScape was you always got so much feedback on everything you were doing, compared to when I made single-player games where you made it and you put it out there and you couldn't really tell if anyone liked it or not. You could look at magazine reviews and see if the reviewers liked it, but you couldn't tell if the actual users liked it. With RuneScape, being online and having forums, you got instant feedback.
Some of our daily routines were just to log onto RuneScape during lunch or before we started work and just have a chat with some of the players. You know, the people on our friends list were actually our friends, and we were just chatting to them and finding out what they were doing. So, yeah, it was there was definitely a lot of kind of interaction between people working at Jagex and the mods and the players in the early days. It felt like a very big, warm community that was very passionate about what was going on in the game.
Well, that's where all the PvPers hang out all the time.
The number of players continued to grow, clans formed, friends lists filled up, and everyone got on swimmingly. For many, friendships formed in RuneScape were stronger than friendships they made outside of it. Those who started playing RuneScape at a young age were growing up in guilds.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the new one looks kind of cool too. It's like the same game but better. I guess that's what people think about Classic WoW and Retail WoW too.
The RuneScape
I haven't played it, so I don't
community
know.
is quite possibly the warmest community in gaming.
A lot of players would actually just jump on and use RuneScape just to chat with other players. In fact, if anything, RuneScape was a glorified kind of chat system for them.
A lot of people like ourselves grew up with RuneScape, so we've got good, strong friendships that have come from just playing RuneScape.
You can meet all different kinds of people from all over the world, and you never know who you're going to meet, and they could turn out to be your best friend.
There used to be a stigma whereby to play a game like RuneScape was to abandon the real world, but actually I think the two realities feed really well into each other. You know, in my job, working for a student union now, I use a lot of the skills that I learned playing RuneScape, and I actually have RuneScape on my CV. So, yeah, and I'm very proud of it.
Dear Mod Ash, I would like to thank you for all your hard work recently. I think you have done an amazing job for the old school server. Wow, strong gaze in the chat. Strong gaze in the chat. That's wholesome. These are the type of letters or comments you see and makes you work harder, chat.
Stories that I read from customer support was just this kid who wrote in to say thanks for the fishing skill. Now, that's a weird thing, but his parents were in the army. And when he was in the UK, he used to go fishing with his granddad down in the lake.
Thank you for serving.
And now when they were moving away, he didn't have the opportunity to do that anymore. But they found RuneScape, and in RuneScape they could fish together. They could log in to the same world, go up to the little lake or the river or whatever, and just fish and chat to each other as though they were doing it in the real world. I genuinely goosebumps when I'm talking about this. You read those kind of messages and you think about the impact that you're making on people's lives. So actually, the social element was more important than the game. The community and the kind of friends that they had there were a bigger deal than the game itself.
And there was an academic study actually done by Brunel University that we reported on about how people use RuneScape. And it wasn't necessarily, because it was such free play, it wasn't necessarily to play the game. Same with Warcraft. It's basically to hang out and to socialise. There was one girl who used to just sit and watch the river and watch the waterfall. There were nice places to hang out in.
Okay.
Compared to your staring at a brick wall in
-35ing if you stare at this.
In a city London, perhaps, So they were real kind of places where people just like to hang out.
In the early days, it was independently, thought-provokingly, unique that people would not only meet online, but they would care about each other online, fall in love online, get married and have children. And now we sort of, having lived through that now for 15 years, we look at that and go, well, yeah, of course we get it. I mean, it's not just, doesn't just happen once. It happens quite regularly. And it's just a truth of, it illustrates how powerful the connection is between people that can start with a honest shared experience in a virtual world that then translates back out into the physical world and flourishes, well beyond the veil of the digital screen.
RuneScape has changed my life in a way that a game shouldn't be able to. It's, it was occasionally a way for me to escape life when I was tired or fed up or I just wanted to go somewhere else. Gielinor is where I'd go. I'd get out of this world and just be there. And obviously, at some point, because of Claire, it's merged into my real life.
We met when I was training Thieving in Pyramid Plunder. I just found this mini game, and when you're in Pyramid Plunder and you let the mummy out and people just run off and leave this mummy and you get attacked by the mummy. And I was going to, but I noticed someone was in the cave, so I thought I'd better kill it then. So I was killing the mummy, and he messaged me after I left. He was like, thanks.
Yo, that's how they met? Dude.
Killing it, and I'm like, yeah, I only killed it because you were there. If you weren't there, I'd have run out.
Awesome. Yeah, man, y'all are jealous, dude. This is cute, guys.
But yeah, so we started talking, and he was helping me figure out thieving and best ways to do it.
That was our meeting. That was our hello.
I will say, man, I think that's the most beautiful thing about gaming community, when there are these guys that are so helpful in the game. Like they have their own grind, they have their own goals, but they go out of their way to show you where certain things are and where you could buy them. And I think that's like the nicest thing to do. And you guys are doing that for me in a way, and man, that is so nice, chat. Because when I first played World of Warcraft, I sucked at it, right? And then there were so many like helpful guys. Obviously, there's like assholes and people calling me noob, but there were so many people that like would go out of their way to help you out. And it's like, dang, that's so nice. And that's why like I started making videos and guides on how to like PvP and climb ranks and whatnot, because those guys did it for me when I was a kid, and I wanted to do the same, right? Help other people like climb in ranks, learn how to PvP, set up macros. Yeah, it's so cool. That part of the community in gaming is like a massive W to me. I want more of that. Because there's too much toxicity in online gaming these days, because everyone's, how do you say it? I don't know the word for it, but yeah, there's a lot more assholes these days online. There's too many, man. Too many. Entitled, yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of toxic people in like the comment sections or like Twitter. Like everyone's just unhappy, and we need more happiness, guys. All right.
Oh, and I've had that in real life. It's like, oh, how did you meet? It's like, oh, she saved me from a mummy in an ancient pyramid.
And then we just used to chat all the time. I used to talk to you.
And it didn't stop.
No, you never shut up.
We just talked all night long, and
we couldn't say MSM in game in RuneScape when you typed in MSM.
It was redacted. It was sort of
it was starred out, so you couldn't say it. So we made up a word called pineapple instead. So whenever we wanted to talk to each other, we'd say go on pineapple. So that was like our little code word for it. When we actually met for the first time in real life, he met at the train station and he had a bunch of flowers in one hand and a pineapple in the other hand.
When we did meet in real life, we did all the things that you could only do in real life. You know, we went on dates, we got married, we had the kids, we moved houses, and all of the real life things,
wow.
You know, from an outside observer, happened quite quickly. But we had that background in the game world.
Wait, they're on
when I introduced myself to Claire,
like a magazine.
I was reserved and secretive, and I was Zach. So that was the name that we gave to our son.
Mm-hmm. And then when we were naming Sophie, we just could not think of a name for a girl. We just didn't have a girl name. And then it was my eldest daughter that said Sophie. And Sophie was the name that we gave to the penguin that goes to Softenham, because, you know, I can't spell Softenham, so we just used to call it Sophie. So it just seemed fitting that's where we met. We met in Softenham.
In the hospital, I called her little baby Softenham.
You did.
Okay.
To imagine not having RuneScape would, you know, I can't even imagine where I'd be, because, you know, how would I?
No one wants to know where I'd be right now.
How would I meet? How would I have met you?
Early on, Jagex were focused on the game itself and knew virtually nothing about the players. But as the team worked on their back end...
My son name is Scurious. Bro, you hate your son. Don't name your son Scurious. Are you troll? That's a fucking rat. That is a bad name, guys. Don't do that.
And support systems, they started to gain more and more insight into their community.
So surprised to see how often and how regular some people were playing. You know, some of the top players were literally playing 16, 17 hours a day. It was just mind-blowing to us that, you know...
He's talking to you guys. Go fucking take a walk, huh? Let me do the grind for you now. Let me get the 99. Go take a walk, fellas. Jesus Christ. Get off the game, buddy. Goodness. Get off the game, guys.
People were playing the game that much.
The highest possible level in a RuneScape skill, such as woodcutting, mining, or magic, was 99. And reaching 99, particularly before your mates, was a mark of huge prestige.
Yeah.
Also a sign...
I still respect this. If you're up there, man, I respect the grind as a gamer.
That you were undeniably awesome.
We never actually expected anybody to reach level 99 in any
You're
of the
buff,
skills.
thank you for the prime.
When I designed the XP curve, originally it was designed, and you know, I worked out how many hours it would take to get to level 20, level 30, level 40, and so on and so forth. And it went up to 99 fairly arbitrarily, but the actual content sort of petered out around about level 40, level 50, because I just didn't think anybody would possibly get past that, because the number of hours to get past that was just so absurd.
I've seen a number of skills come out over the year, and as a new skill comes out, there's always the excitement of, oh, who's number one, who's top, who's at the top of the game, and experiencing the new content for the first time.
Drum gun.
2007.
Yo, are there any of these guys still on the top?
And experiencing the
any names you see familiar, guys? Or no? Maybe they got married and have kids, moved on. But back then, they were probably the GOATs, huh? Drum gun, yes. Drum gun, yes. Really? This guy still plays.
Content.
Forsberg. Oh, I see Forsberg. So these two still play. Alright, that's pretty cool. Sumi, what's up? Hello, hello. Mac. This guy too. Okay, maybe they all still play. That's cool, man.
For the first time.
Around 2007, I really started putting in some major hours.
RuneScape was my first MMO. I never got a 99. You must carry the torch, Savix sold.
I will carry the torch, my friend. Thank you for 22 months in a row, man. Yo, all these guys are young. Why? When I watch like Blizzard documentaries, they're all like, respectfully, they're like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm 70 years old now, and yes, the game was very good. Like, dude, RuneScape devs are all young, and all the guys that are like showing up are young. Maybe that's why they understand and did Classic Plus and kept going, and the Blizzard guys didn't see that vision. I don't know. And when we asked for Classic, and they're like, you think you do, but you don't, right? Like, they didn't want to give it to us. But RuneScape guys were cool enough to do it, maybe because they're young and they understand. Maybe that's what it is. But they did do a good job with the game. Like the Blizzard devs, they did a fucking amazing job in 2004 through Lich King. Like that thing was insanely well done. Amazing. But they didn't have the fresh, young understanding, I guess. Rewind 10 seconds. Okay.
Top of the game and experiencing the new content for the first time.
Around 2007, I really started putting in some major hours.
You wanted me to see him using the mouse on the left hand? Is that what you guys wanted? Oh, this is drum gun. Yeah, I saw it. It was on his like desk, or not desk, his closet. Yeah. This is the rank 1. Yeah, I'm not racing XP, guys. You think I'm a noob? Thank you very much.
Just never stopped. I just, at first it was tough.
It's 2 really, mouses?
The motivation to keep going for a certain high rank got me into it, and eventually it was just routine to me. Close to 2100 days played now. If you spend so much time on the game, then it kind of becomes a part of you. So part of me is how should I say it? RuneScape is like a part of me, so yeah.
High-ranked players attained a degree of celebrity within the community. People wanted to be them. They wanted their rank, their high scores, and they definitely wanted the wealth in their banks. But one stood head and shoulders above the rest. Every player had heard of him. Every player knew his name. That name...
Who is it? Who is it, guys?
...was Zezima.
If you've played RuneScape at any point in your career, you probably know of Zezima.
When I first started in the company, we used to get a lot of questions from the players.
Wait, that was Bodhi? Wait, Bodhi is Zezima? Your girls, thank you for the tier 1. No. So Zezima and Bodhi's a different person. Okay, but wait, why did they show Zezima and then show Bodhi? Wait, how long did Bodhi play? This guy is like the pioneer of this game. He's been playing forever. Okay, let me rewind. I was trying to see who the player was.
Player had heard of him. Every player knew his name. That name was Zezima.
If you've played RuneScape at any point in your career, you probably know of Zezima.
Oh, okay.
When I first started in the company,
I understand
we used to get a lot of questions from the players about things to do with the game. And I was given a list of players that I could log in to the game and ask them those questions. Because even in those early days, we knew the players knew more about the game than we did. And one of those names was Zezima.
Zezima is the most famous player.
He is just an absolute legend. He did everything when it was hard to do. He achieved the unthinkable.
Zezima, he's legends. Everyone knows Zezima, man.
Really?
Back when he was on the top of the high scores, there was...
Guys, who is Zezima? I only know about Wooks right now. And then I called him the faker of old school RuneScape. And the old school RuneScape doomers were getting mad at me saying, "You're calling him a fake. He's not a fake." And I'm like, are you stupid? Dude, I was saying he's the best player. Dude, that comment section was so fried.
All sorts of accusations that he was some...
For the people that don't know, Faker is one of the best League of Legends players. Like, if you're called Faker, it's like the most goated thing to hear. And I called Wooks a Faker, and some of the doomers thought I was saying he's a fake. It's so stupid, man. It's so stupid.
We character sharing, but we certainly investigated it and found no sort of evidence pointing to that.
Yeah, it's like the Michael Jordan.
Paul, but you know who Zezima is.
In 2005, he was the top RuneScape player. But for all his fame, his real identity was shrouded in mystery.
Zezima is definitely better off not being revealed, because that's what creates the enigma, that's what makes Zezima special. So I think the longer we can keep his identity secret, the better.
There's rumors and things, but there's no really
clear, like, answer to who he is or much about him.
The mystery has gone on for so long. What does he look like? Who is it? And if we could find that out, that would be truly cool.
I like the mystery of it. Yeah, the legend.
Zezima is a legend, a myth. I think he doesn't exist.
My name is Zezima, and I've been playing since 2001. I've had continuous membership on RuneScape since 2003, so I've been around a long time. Kind of interesting to be seen as such a legend by so many people. That's really the only way I can describe it. I first discovered RuneScape because I was playing a different game, which was the Final Fantasy card game online, and someone I played that game with told me he knew a game I would never be any good at, so he showed me RuneScape, and that's how I started playing. When I first got number 1, it was pretty exciting. It was interesting. I wasn't exactly aiming for it. I was just going for maxing out, but it was nice when it happened. I was putting in a lot of hours, more than 10 hours a day for
he sounds like a gamer.
6 years straight. It's a matter of just feeling the need to complete it. Being so well known on RuneScape has made it a lot easier to tolerate comments from people. Like, negative comments don't affect me in the game or outside the game at all.
It's a nice gap.
So it's helped me just manage emotions pretty well, a lot better than I would be able to otherwise. I've heard a lot of things about myself that I never knew were true.
He plays with the... What the fuck? I've never seen anyone play with this.
I found out that I'm a girl from Australia. I never knew that. I've never been to Australia. And apparently I'm also 7 80-year-old Chinese women rotating one day of the week each, playing on my account.
What?
I would love it though, like start all over from scratch, everyone at the same time, and then compete for rank 1. Yeah, that would be awesome. Give him a piece of my mind.
It just never occurred to us that people would spend that many hours playing the game. Although, funnily enough, subsequently my own dad actually spent an awful lot of hours playing the game.
How much time do I spend on now? 4 or 5 hours a day?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yes.
And he himself got a far higher level than I thought anyone would get. So, just goes to show.
Damn.
Much more addictive than I thought it was.
Managing an online world was pretty complex, and technical hitches were inevitable.
Oh, shit.
Sometimes those hitches became rather spectacular.
Bug abuse is a really difficult thing for me to talk about because actually you're kind of glorifying someone who has broken the rules. So one of the most extreme versions of bug abuse was the Falador Massacre.
For years and years and years, it stood out as like a pinnacle event in RuneScape.
Falador Massacre came about, I believe, as a bug with the player-owned houses. Somebody had discovered that they could kick people from the house whilst in combat mode and strut around Falador, killing innocent players.
So there were...
You bad boys! There's always one of these bad boys, man.
Players running around absolutely everywhere saying, oh, watch out, someone's going to kill you, don't, make sure you bank all your valuable stuff. And there were a lot of people there going there just to see it happen.
People were telling me,
my God.
Some players killing people, and then I was like, I want to try this out, so I want to go there. And I saw like so many people, I lagged so badly, but I do still remember that event. It's like one of the biggest like events that ever happened in RuneScape.
I was called to be told, you know, you were vaguely willing to do call-out work for us. Well, we've decided to go ahead with that plan. Are you doing anything at the moment?
Probably killed quite a lot of players, largely because people thought it was an exciting
I feel
event.
like I've
So
seen
going around
that
kicking
guy
people
on the
outside
right
London, so they
somewhere.
all came into Falador so that they could be killed by him.
I was probably assassinated a bajillion times. It was chaos. It was absolute chaos.
It also helps that for many of our customers,
That's
that was
Ash.
the 6th of 2006. In Britain, it was actually the 7th, but for the majority of players, it was still the 6th.
Yeah, I think Duriel 321 will go down in history for sure as being one of the darkest days in RuneScape.
Events like the Falador Massacre in 2006 will forever be a part of RuneScape history and are still chatted about to this day. In 2007, a new method of communicating about the game became popular: YouTube. Over 1,000 player-made videos were posted every day. Player numbers were rising.
Wait, YouTube was 2007? Did I hear that correctly?
More and more people were talking about RuneScape, and there was an undeniable buzz about the game. It seemed like it couldn't get any better. But this success was...
YouTube was 2005. I know at some point it was Google Video, and then it became YouTube, because I remember watching WoW montages on Google Video. And then that became YouTube. I think that's how it went, right? 2006 when it became popular. Got it. Okay. No. Google bought YouTube way later? Oh, is that way later? Okay. Because me and my brothers used Google Video before we got into YouTube. And Google Video was pretty popular. They bought. Yeah, I don't know. Dang, Mr. Mammal played since then too, huh?
Double-edged godsword. The community was getting so big that Jagex Systems couldn't handle the number of players, and the company began to drift away from its community.
With great power comes great responsibility, and the bigger we got, the more responsible we felt for this huge community. And I think we realised that we couldn't have that one-on-one relationship with all of our players because there were just so many of them. So we stopped treating everyone with this personal touch.
At that stage, we kind of then realised that there were lots of things we weren't able to do. We were getting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of reports each week. We were having thousands of tickets each week. We had 10,000 ban appeals each week, which we were kind of doing ourselves because we were banning so many players and all the rest of it, and we didn't have a kind of smart way of approaching that.
It didn't feel so much like this little baby of ours anymore, like it had got its own life. And I think the players and the community were there were different sorts of groups and different sorts of players that we didn't relate to as well, just because of the amount there were out there.
But one problem stood out among the rest.
Gold farming and botting, the bane of any MMO economy.
Yeah.
A bot is...
Dude, botting exists everywhere. Every game I touched, Lost Ark, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, RuneScape, like, man, these bots, dude. And I feel like bots are getting better and better too now because like technology is advancing, right? And I saw like when I was playing WoW, I saw a video about people talking about RuneScape botters, but they have like this AI that types out for them to act like they're not AFK. And I actually witnessed that when I was farming salmons. I wasn't talking to this guy, but this guy was talking like a bot to me like all day. And I was like, dude, what is this guy saying? I was trying to talk to Nerd who was helping me out, but yeah, whenever I type something, he would reply trying to talk with me. And I'm like, what is this guy saying, you know? Yeah. We have real life bots too. And I mean, yeah, that exists in WoW too. There's real bots, yeah.
It's a program that a player would use to run their RuneScape character for them. So when they're away from their computer at work or at college, the bot can gather gold for them or fish for them or fight monsters for them. All sorts of simplistic activities that the player would normally be doing themselves. A gold farmer group is an organised group of people who are paid to just get gold from a game. And then
so every time I see this character now, I think about Oda because I thought he made his character look like this. But apparently, in a PvP server, you look like this by default. Yeah. And now every time I see this, I think of that.
Who are paid to just get gold from a game and then sell that gold for real world.
I thought he was cosplaying his character,
Some call them gold farmers, others call them cheats. They are exploiting the fast-growing phenomenon
These bad boys.
of online gaming.
Quite often, those people would be running hundreds of accounts, hundreds of botted accounts, which were getting all these resources and selling those resources to other players in the game and then getting RuneScape gold. And then actually creating websites, very official looking websites, where you could enter your credit card details and then organise to buy that gold from one of these gold farmers in the game.
For hours on end, they sit in the gloom of an airless outhouse, hunched over computers, pitting their wits against a
What? Double mouse is crazy. What is this double mouse tech?
Opponents on another continent. They are working in a virtual world, but
holy shit.
This is a real-life sweatshop.
Really disturbingly for us, we discovered that there was all sorts of links between gold farming and kind of other illegal activities and really quite dodgy parts of business going all over the world, and we were really, really fundamentally committed to stopping it from happening in our game.
And we had such a large player base that some of these companies were earning, millions of dollars. I'm pretty sure that some of them, may have even been building, a company with the same sort of revenue that Jagex actually had from just that.
You may be thinking, who cares? It's just fake points in a make-believe world, but it costs
What's your language, boy?
$60 a year to play, hours of time to gain power, and there are dozens of websites offering coins to use in RuneScape.
What's your tongue?
For a fee.
It was really obvious to everybody that was playing the game that these accounts weren't real and they were being run by programs. And it really started to upset the fundamental balance of the game.
When you walk up to 4 or 5 people and no one's saying anything, and it's very obvious that they're just doing the same pattern over and over again, and they're controlled by a piece of software.
Holy shit, dude, this is pretty bad. We have the similar thing in WoW too.
Cheating aside, that's just a pretty rubbish experience. It doesn't feel like a cool game with real people playing it. Really.
It sucks.
All this extra gold sloshing around in the game means that the real gold that's been earned actually is devalued when buying stuff. So something that may have cost you 1 million gold pieces is actually now only worth 500,000. And this is really difficult.
Is there any genius in the chat that is young and bright and has a great idea to stop these bots? There's like no way, right? I feel like it's hard. Me, smiley face. Yes, I have an... There's no way. There's no way. Everyone make an Iron Man. Everyone's hardcore. Yeah, I don't know. Play Iron Man. Shut all the servers down. Where there is someone who will buy gold, there will be reasons. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was thinking about that too. It's like, do we get mad at these guys for farming gold and trying to hustle? And do we get mad at the guys that just want to play the game, but they don't have time, so they buy gold and play? Like, I guess like everything connects in a way, but is it like ethical to do, Did you earn it yourself, in a way? Yeah. There's a lot of like leeways, I guess. Savix, one guy actually bought his PC to Cambridge to prove that he didn't bought. Really? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard thing. I'm thinking if like in Korea, I know a lot of people aren't gonna agree with this. In a lot of the stuff, you need to use your social security to play the games. And if you get banned, like you're done for. So you only have one chance. I feel like something like that could make sense, but there's like ways to get in, I guess, using your grandpa's code or something. Yeah, I know. I was saying a lot of people are going to disagree with it. But I feel like that's one way of securing that you're an actual player. Yeah, anyways, let's continue the game.
Players to kind of invest in their accounts, because all of that hard work again is undermined by gold farming.
A lot of people left the game because of botting and gold farming. I mean, it really ruined the experience for gamers.
It challenged the players to really search inside themselves, to value their own accomplishments and ignore what was going on around them, because it was a very tough environment to play in when you were going for an achievement and so were 35 bots behind you.
It really undermines the integrity of RuneScape.
Another problem with this kind of illegal activity that the gold farmers were doing was stolen credit cards. And they were using those numbers to make accounts. And so when people realised their cards were being used illegally, they would contact their banks and they would get all of the illegal payments charged back to the account.
It was getting to the stage where the credit card companies themselves were saying, we're not going to accept your credit cards because you're getting so many people charging back because of the stolen credit cards that we think you're too dodgy a person to actually accept them. credit cards if you don't do something about it. And at that point, we're like, I've got to accept credit card payments, and we really are screwed. We got to the point where we were like, there's only two ways we can possibly tackle this. We can either, A, start selling the items ourselves, because that will basically dry up their market, and they won't have any financial incentive to keep breaking our countermeasures. Or we can do something really radical. We had one idea for how we could just completely break them that we didn't think they'd be able to work out, which is by restricting the trades.
After so many meetings and lots of discussions, we made the decision, which we didn't take lightly, to remove free trade from the game, which meant a lot of players couldn't, pass items to each other. They couldn't give gifts or presents to each other. That was pretty huge. But it did also mean that for these bots that were passing wealth to their mules, they couldn't do that anymore. Those mules that were passing it to players for real-world cash, they couldn't do that anymore. It also meant that we'd affected player versus player killing, because people were going into the wilderness to gain each other's weapons or gain each other's gold. This was done in the wilderness, and that obviously made the wilderness a vastly different place.
Before the change, the wilderness was probably the busiest place in RuneScape, and then overnight that just changed, and there was all of a sudden just no one going there. There was no point. All of a sudden, the most popular place became the least popular.
So you could still go into the wilderness, but it was dead. It was supposed to be dead.
It killed the
there
game,
were bones
damn.
and skeletons and demons and lava and all that kind of stuff all over the place. But there weren't any players anymore. So it's just it was a really disturbing experience, actually, walking around in areas of the game world where previously it was full of carnage, and then it wasn't really full of anything at all.
The removal of the wilderness was, I would say, the biggest, most dramatic event in RuneScape history, and it was unique in that it united a community against Jagex.
I don't know if a game could riot any harder than I remember those worlds.
No PK. How do you top like that? It's like, whoa. No PK.
66 riots that were going on for, I think, an entire week or so after that update happened.
Goodwill between players and Jagex was not quite the same again after that, I don't think, or at least for a very long time. It was not quite as good.
We'd made a change that they didn't like, and they couldn't really understand why we'd made it. We tried to explain, but obviously it sounds like excuses, and I think a lot of people just thought we were making it up, so it didn't help things at all.
I think that kind of almost insular approach of, look, it is what it is, get on with it, meant that the company didn't engage.
I mean, if there's one thing I could change going back now, it'd be that decision in 2007 when we decided to get rid of the real world trading.
With free trade removed, gold farmers initially disappeared. Bots were on a manageable scale again, but the cost had been high.
It looked like, to a lot of players, we'd killed the game because the areas were less busy, and there were all these people complaining and saying that they were going to quit. So it was a really bad time. And remember, we thought we'd done the right thing, and it just didn't look good.
Over the next 3 years, RuneScape faced something it had never faced before: a decline. Player numbers dwindled, and
they had their reasonings, right? But they just navigated the ship incorrectly, making them players unhappy. But their intentions were for good, right?
Relationship between Jagex and its players hit rock bottom. It was time to make a big gesture, for the company to come down from its ivory tower and meet its players face to face. And more importantly, this was an opportunity to explain why it had made these dramatic decisions.
Good afternoon! How are you all doing?
We decided to do RuneFest because we wanted to do the ultimate community event. We'd done a few small things here and there, but we wanted to have an opportunity to meet players en masse, and also to have a platform to tell players about what we wanted to do in the future, and to share with them the things that we were most excited about.
Yeah, let's look around the office. This is actually a pretty cool company with some pretty cool people. We're not trying to manufacture anything here, but we have to give the world a lens into this business. So we have to do a fan celebration.
Good morning, Gillingham!
We were worried that people were going to be horrifically disappointed that what we put on wasn't going to be good enough, and we were actually so worried about it that we actually made the decision to refund everybody's ticket price for the first RuneFest. So all the people who went to the regional RuneFest got their money back and still had the tickets. They all went for free.
Really?
We didn't want to let anyone down, and we still put the event on. But we just thought it wasn't going to be very good. And it was stupid because it was brilliant. Everyone went, oh, I'm so going to the next one. Everyone loved it. And we're like, why did we do that? Why did we doubt ourselves?
I don't think we realised how important...
Have you guys been to RuneFest? I actually got told by SnackyBot, he's one of my old friends, he works for Guzu now as an editor. He was asking me to come to RuneFest. And I was like, when is it? He's like, next year, March, bruv. I was like, bro, that's so long. That's so long from now, but sure. So we might go, man. You guys never went. Come to Brazil instead. Holy moly. I went to BlizzCon twice. BlizzCon was fun. Not the whole convention, but it's mostly about meeting your friends and your community. And I feel like that part is super fun. Because we talk online, we become friends, but you never meet in real life, right? So meeting them in real life is like a different vibe, and it's really fun. Really fun seeing the friends. So we might go.
RuneFest was going to be really until, we'd done it, and once we'd done it, we knew that, there was a real need for RuneScapers to come together. There's nothing better than like meeting the people that you've been playing RuneScape with for years, to suddenly meet them in person, and everyone's in cosplay, and if that wasn't your thing, then you might want to come and meet the developers behind the games.
You had 70-year-old grandmas with 16, 17-year-old teenagers. It showed the breadth of our community. It was fantastic, and everyone was so happy to meet one another and finally put a face to a name.
How long did this costume take to make?
About 200 hours.
200 hours?
Yes.
Have you come a long way today?
From Canada.
You get to find out what they love about the game. You get to see that in their faces, and that just changes every update. You're no longer thinking about like what the forum's going to say. You're thinking about individual people.
Show the rookie number.
The looks on their faces as they play something. You want to surprise them.
It just goes to show that the game goes beyond just the barriers of, a virtual world. It spills into real life, which is amazing.
RuneFest gave everyone at Jagex a spring in their step. But Andrew was beginning to feel distanced from the game he had created.
I wanted to get myself in a position where I could still advise Jagex and still, I loved RuneScape. I absolutely wanted to keep working on it, but I didn't want the responsibility and the stress of being in charge of something so big and so important. So I started looking at selling my remaining stake in Jagex, but it wasn't meant to be a radical shift, but it was just meant to be a way that I didn't have to be a director of a huge company.
He wouldn't have chosen to be the leader. Andrew the reason I even got the job in the first place was Andrew didn't want to be that guy, didn't want to be in charge.
He just wants to work on, because his passion was like making games, making it better. And then when you're like the leader, you gotta like do a lot of other stuff probably.
He wanted to write more code and hang around with the other guys, right? He didn't even want the visibility of people knowing he was a meaningful shareholder or co-founder.
When Andrew came to selling the company, I wasn't enjoying it quite so much anyway, so I was reasonably happy to go along with that. So,
whilst I'd been quite stressed being in charge, I suddenly realised that when I wasn't in charge, all of a sudden what I had to say didn't matter so much, and people were doing things not the way I wanted them to do them, and that was the whole point, of course. The whole point was I didn't want to be responsible, and I just wanted to be able to advise and help and nurture the game I'd made without having to be so responsible. But as soon as that responsibility was taken away, I realised, oh dear, you can't have it both ways. Without responsibility, you also don't have the authority. You can't have one without the other. And by trying to make myself less stressed and reduce the responsibility, I'd also reduce the authority. And all of a sudden, I found that I didn't have the final say on things, and other people had the final say on things, and I'd made a mistake, quite frankly. Eventually just reached the point where I just wasn't doing anything for Jagex anymore, but there was no sort of date where I left. I didn't have a leaving do or anything like that. It just sort of faded away.
I never got the chance to kind of hug him and say thanks. And that was really sad.
After Andrew left, Paul continued to work on RuneScape. But things were changing. It seemed like everyone was producing their own MMO, and mobile gaming was looking like it might be the next big thing. The company knew they had to keep up and planned their next move.
The challenge was really, how can we level this out? And how can we go and build RuneScape and grow it again?
I remember that one day we came into the office and someone said that they got a new way of dealing with bots, and that maybe there was a way that we could bring back the wilderness.
For me, it was clear, like, this is one of the things we just have to fix. We have to go back to mea culpa. We didn't get it right.
Wait, they had it shut down that long? I thought they just talked about it briefly and then they brought it back, but...
Let's sort this out.
We decided to do a poll online where people could vote on whether we would or would not bring back the wilderness. And we made it very clear the pros and the cons of that approach. We had an overwhelming amount of players vote in that poll. Over 1 million, like 1.11.
2011. Please register if you want to vote. And the danger of original wildly. Dang.
1.2 million players, and I think it was like 95% yes, please bring it back.
And then it was a question, okay, would bots increase? Sure, they would. Were we bot free at the time? No.
As with everything with RuneScape, it was always a trade-off, and we could have probably continually keep building things out and delaying putting the wilderness back, but we decided just to go for it, put it back, put in place what we had, which was pretty reasonable, and then continue to build more ways to be able to stop the bots. So that's what we did.
I believe Botnet Day was October 25th, 2011. This was a day that we released something called, I've got to get this right, Cluster Flutterer, which is this program that kind of attacked the bots systematically. And it did a fantastic job. It knocked out 98%.
Why does it look sad? Poor bots. Why does it look so sad?
Of the bots, I think we removed 7 million accounts on that day, which is fantastic, and that really kind of cleaned the decks. So going into the game felt like RuneScape again.
The biggest problem we had was that all of a sudden it seemed that our player numbers had just dropped. So players were saying, "Oh, RuneScape's not popular anymore." What they didn't realise was there were so many thousands of bots in the game all at the same time. It looked like we'd lost, a third of our player base in one go, but actually it was because these bots had been in the game and had taken so much time and space.
Bots are innocent?
In
bots are just
2012,
working. The humans are the ones making
a fundamental change to their business model. The addition of microtransactions.
Okay.
Microtransactions allow players to buy cosmetic items and benefits with real-world money. Something that was always going to be divisive.
So the problem we were facing was as we increased our production value.
So you guys had this problem too, huh? Sheesh.
For our content, everything cost more. It took more people, it took more graphics, but all of it together meant that a piece of content they used to make in 2003 cost 3 times as much. And we had to work out how do we do it? Do we not do the content, or do we find more ways to,
dude,
cover the costs of this?
You can't keep up with the Ozan.
The difficulty for me and for many of us at that point in time was that subscribers had always got everything. Anything new we added to the game, they paid their membership every month, they got it. And all of a sudden, there was a bunch of stuff that they had to be lucky
cool.
and win
What the
on
hell?
a kind of little wheel. Or they had to pay a little bit of money for special bits of costume and things like that. And the players didn't really like that. And to be honest, there was a real division in the office as well, because we are gamers.
I think I actually left the company.
I think people don't like the pay purchase cosmetics because they would rather have it in the game and you do like a fun little quest or quiz to earn the item, right? And then if the made items look better than the ones you get in the quest, like people get sad about that, right? I think it's different. If it's a monthly pay-based game, you shouldn't do that. However, if it's like a free-to-play game like League and then they sell skin, like they gotta run the company, right? I think like the skins that cost $200 is over. It's crazy, right? But if it's free-to-play and they have like cosmetic skin, I think it's okay. But if you're paying monthly, I think it's different, right? It's very different.
when they started introducing microtransactions to the Squeal of Fortune, because one thing which we'd always publicly said to the players was that we wouldn't start selling microtransactions.
What is this?
So by them doing that, if I was still involved in the
Wait, are these the lamps that give you the EXP in game? I get them when I do like that little quiz stuff. No way. You could slot to get level? Bro, RuneScape 3, what are you guys doing? Okay, they went further than selling skin. They're selling like EXPs.
Selling microtransactions. So by them doing that, if I was still involved in the company, it sort of felt like it made...
Yeah, if you do that, if you sell like skills RNG wise, I think it becomes in a way where other people that grinded it raw feel discouraged if you could just pay to win, basically. Yeah. Okay, I can see why you guys are upset about RS3 a little bit. Or not a little bit, but yeah, you get my point.
Me into a liar. I was sort of saying we never do that, and then we did.
May not be popular, but it was very necessary for fundamentally the financial viability of Jagex. It's people may not think that's important, but if Jagex is not around, RuneScape's not around. It's as simple as that.
Although the game had a large group of loyal players, large parts of RuneScape were beginning to show their age, and new players were turned off by outdated graphics and mechanics. One area in particular was targeted by...
If he's saying what is true, guys, like the company needed it, what do you say to that, huh? That's the hard part. And I don't know if that's what Andrew was saying, where he said he didn't have charge. Maybe he wasn't agreeing with a lot of stuff here too. That's cap. You think so? It's just great. You think the like company owner wanted a little bit more moolah or something, huh? Jagex was weeks away from bankruptcy. Really? Man, I don't know. Some people are saying greed. Some people are saying they were close to bankruptcy. Increase the subscription price then. Okay.
Jagex as the most in need of improvement. The combat system.
It was towards the end of 2012 when Daniel left and I was promoted to head of RuneScape, and that was just on the cusp of the release of Evolution of Combat, so it meant I had a front row seat for the launch of the new combat system.
A lot of content in RuneScape is very simple. Even combat, even fighting a big dragon, is kind of like, have I got the right armor, have I got the right shield, and now I go and I click on the dragon, and I hit the dragon dragon hits me, I hit the dragon hits me. When we would talk to the players that were quitting the game, number one reason was combat's boring. So a couple of developers came up with an idea to make combat more interesting by offering different sorts of moves, basic moves, and then you kind of build up adrenaline, and then you can do things like ultimate moves, which are massive, great big, graphically impressive moves with all sorts of swishes and cool little effects that are going on, and new death animations and all sorts of stuff like that, where combat felt like a more engaging, more immersive experience, and it was great, and it really worked, and actually combat was a lot more exciting.
We were worried a little bit about whether or not that was too much of a move. In hindsight, what we should have been more worried about was that players have become almost these kind of Chuck Norrises of the old combat system. They've become amazing at specialising and working its intricacies, and that kind of moved the new system, and they lost all that knowledge. I think that's what should have been our biggest concern.
It really polarized between lovers and haters. There was a really strong divide.
I thought we needed that necessary change.
What do we think, guys? You guys like it or not like it? Hate it? 90% hate it? It was great, awful, L, copium. Okay, they did not look happy. They did not look happy. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The community speaks. The community speaks. Holy moly. Okay. I don't think we need a poll. I think this is it's a landslide.
A different element to the game. We could fight bosses with different mechanics and different styles. The bosses can fight us with different styles and attacks.
It was a big change for me, and I tried my best to get into it, but it just wasn't the same game.
That's Bodhi, right? He doesn't like it either.
I did struggle to it, I think, because I'm quite a stubborn person. When you have something that you're so accustomed to and all of a sudden it's changed, it was difficult.
It felt very much like we've made this update, we can't scrap it, so it's gonna happen.
By that time, we'd got really locked in because we had 6 months worth of content that used the new combat system on its way. I think also we kind of hoped that the players would give it a chance, they'd see it was pretty good, and they'd learn and they'd stick with it. And some people did. Some people liked it on release, some people tolerated it and learnt it and stuck with it, but some of them didn't like it, and for them it was too big of a change.
You could log in the game now and you could talk to players, and you would have probably a 50-50 split of players saying that's the best thing you ever did, I love the new combat system, and players going, I don't get it, you've ruined my game for me. And yeah, I wish I could go back and change that.
Damn, he actually looks sad.
Evolution of Combat hadn't brought the growth that Jagex hoped for. Far from it. But it did give them the push they needed to really start talking to their community.
The thing that we kind of really forgot was what really made us special. The things that we did in the early days that the players really, really loved. And one of those key things was that communication.
With community management, we've done it badly as a company, and we've done it really well, and we found that happy medium, so we kind of took to Twitter, which was a new thing. You know, I started up a Twitter account, a couple of other people started up a Twitter account, so it was this whole new area that we hadn't actually explored, and seeing the success of that, we started...
What do you guys think, guys? Do you think you guys have a good community manager, people looking at comments and whatnot? Do you guys feel good about it now? Because WoW had a problem where they always thought they knew everything and they would not listen to the community, especially in Shadowland, where they made us choose a covenant and we couldn't change it. And players were like, please let us change it. And they said no. And so many people quit. After that, they hired a lot more people. We have good community manager. They communicate with the players. They actually listen to the community a lot. And I feel like from what I heard playing WoW, I always heard that you guys had a poll system, and I was very jealous of that. Like, I wanted WoW to have a poll system. So at least you guys had that, right? But I don't know. That's why I want to ask you guys if you guys had a good relationship with the company that talks to you guys or lets you guys feel like you're listened as a community, right? Polls are rigged anyways. Yeah, a lot of people say that. So that's the exact same thing. Yeah, I mean, all WoW people face that, man. What community manager does WoW have, XT? We have 30 seconds of dev interview for PvP every 2 years. Okay, I don't... Torch, I have played and made YouTube videos of PvP since 2008. If you think right now is bad, bro... It was terrible back then, man. You guys have it way better than we do now. You guys have it way better in WoW than now. I will say that much, man. So much better than before. So RuneScape, good, or they're doing better or not, guys? 5% wanted sailing, yet that's what we're going. I heard you guys had like 4, no? There was like pet system or something, like summoning and then sailing, and then there was one more, and then out of those, this one. So you guys got it? That's what people were telling me when I was first getting into RuneScape. It's a lot better. Okay. A lot better. OSRS is great compared to the other people. Okay. Okay. Okay, here's the thing, guys. Well, it's hard because these are like the new things. You know how you guys said these changes were bad and that changes were bad? I don't understand the concept of sailing, but is it, can I say like if you don't like it, you don't have to do it? Or is it like you want to complete it and get 99, but you don't want to do it? Because what I want to say is, compared to Classic WoW, at least you guys are getting new content, right? Where we get like a drop of water in a way, right? So that's what I want to get at. Like, should we be happy that we're getting some new stuff, or is it bad? Man, I don't want to do mine, but I'll do sometimes. Okay, okay. Sailing is rare miss for new content slabs. Dang, really? So it's a rare miss. Usually they have... What was before sailing? What did they add before sailing? Rather not have that zoggy shit sailing. Many things aren't OSRS. Summoning. Sailing is the first skill. Okay, okay, okay. No new skill. Got it. Volamore. I think they should have Repo Shamanism versus Sailor instead of going with Sailing. Oh, like out of the top 4, they just chose the one that won, but what you wanted was maybe do like top 2, redo the poll again. Maybe they could do that in the future from this
King,
learning curve. We wanted Dungeoneers, I see. Shamanism was 0.2% lower. No way, it was super close? Papa Ciao, thank you for the 24 months, appreciated. Dang. Who's we? Guys. Alright, let me get my fire cape and then we can say we are, right?
It also helps that it's easier to develop content on a game with less high detail graphics and assets. Helps focus on the mechanics and gameplay. RS3 I imagine costs a lot more to develop content for. Also polls are a good and bad. Unfortunately we don't get surprise content.
Sure. Black Rabbit, thank you for tier 1. Okay, let's finish this video, guys.
You know, created this ripple effect, and before you knew it, we had the CEO on Twitter, we had, you know, artists, developers, audio, everybody was on Twitter chatting to the players. It's as simple as that, really. It was a kind of turning the community around, was just basically talking to them, something that I think we'd lost somewhere along the way.
We started doing stupid stuff as well, like to try and show the community that we weren't these big bad meanies that they'd kind of thought that we were. We started making player-owned ports videos. I remember building a ship one week in the back of the office, and Mark and the team made a song, and worked with the audio team on a song for the cow. And we did all these things to just try and show that we were human. We had such a laugh doing it.
If you expect your team to be approachable, then you have to do the same too, and you've got to put yourself out there.
I think that I've been painted blue and in a tutu and then as an elf and even a fish at various points in videos. We're just being a bit more fun, trying out new things as we chat away and give information about what we're doing to players.
I would say that Jagex has one of the communities where the employees work more with the players than most other companies that I know of, at least, which I think is a really good thing because it really strengthens their bond rather than being a employee customer. It's more like interacting friends, making something great together, which I really think is pretty great.
They don't shy away from speaking to people. They will openly, answer questions on Twitter and stuff like that. It's nice. It's very nice.
Players started noticing that we were just caring a little bit more again, and we stopped focusing our attention on recalibrating the game for a new audience and focusing our attention on making sure that the game was right for the audience that we had.
So we'd re-engaged with the community, but it was really clear that they wanted one thing, which was an old version of RuneScape. And we didn't know if this was even possible, but we felt that we had to do it because we had this huge community that was still enjoying the game, but we knew there was this old, lapsed audience that had...
Wait, what does it mean, bring it back? They shut down old school RuneScape at a certain point? It didn't exist. Oh, what? Wait, I thought you guys always had old school RuneScape, and then you guys got that new RuneScape, and there was both games. So old school RuneScape became the RuneScape 3, so you guys lost the old one. Oh my god. I thought you guys had this the whole time. Wait, what year did you guys get it back then? Okay, no wonder you guys were unhappy and grumpy. Oh my god. Oh my god. Wait, so it came back on 2013 and then you guys had to start fresh on a fresh account. Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck? Dang, okay. Well, I know the lore now. I thought you guys always had old school RuneScape. Because the first one, they said they kept the server on, right? The first RuneScape they made. And then they just made the RuneScape 2. Right? So I thought they let you guys continue playing RuneScape. But they just made RuneScape into RuneScape 3, I guess, huh? And then you guys got Classic. Okay. And then it became Classic Plus after that. Got it.
Left that we could win back if we were able.
Oh my god! So this whole time I thought you guys still had old school RuneScape, and I know he was talking about the combat change. So you guys had to like just swallow that nasty pill you guys didn't want. I was gonna say, oh, if you don't like the combat, why don't you just play old school RuneScape then, right? But you guys didn't have a choice. Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy. And then it was too big of a jump from the gameplay you guys are used to. Okay.
To provide them with an old version.
So I went to one of my favourite people, Phil Bilby, not Bilby, and said, Phil, can we get an old school backup, 07 backup?
Eventually, what I did was I found in the back of a safe a tape that was just a little tape that had on the back of it just a number, which was
no way
1989, and I guessed correctly that was the rune day that the code was from. So that turned out to be August 2007.
So this guy's a hero.
When we wanted to go back to.
And he said it's all back, it's all working. A lot of the tech's not compatible.
That's
with that current
crazy.
tech, but it's there, it's running.
We were all really excited about that, of course. So we decided to put it out for players and see what they would make of it.
Depending on how many votes, depended on the sort of support we'd give it. And I think 450,000 people who voted on it, that was just short of giving it a proper dev team, but because they were so close, it was only 50,000 short, we decided, let's give it a dev team, let's give it some proper support and see where it goes from there.
That was my ideal time when RuneScape was played, was 2007. I was absolutely ecstatic for it.
It just felt right, everything was perfect.
Oh my god. That soundtrack, mate!
The fact that we'd fundamentally gone to the heart of giving people what they want meant it was a success.
It was going to be a race with the high scores. Being a brand new game, everyone's going to be
Yo, that's so cool.
The top levels. This was everyone.
This part's the best part. When it's a fresh and everyone's just leveling, everyone's just looking at each other, friends are keeping track of each other. Oh my god. That's why people like playing Classic Relaunch, because you get that feel. Everything's just fresh. New world, new economy, no bots. And then fast forward 1 year, like there's 10 million bots, you know?
Go.
The team
but the fresh
it,
is always so good.
It was a very small team initially.
So good.
But they were the truest of the true old school guys, right? Both from a programming standpoint, community standpoint.
The head of content came over to my desk to say, Ash, would you be willing to go to it as content developer for a while?
This guy sounds so smart.
And when he got to my desk, he found I was in the middle of writing him an email begging to be a content developer on it. So we decided we were on the same page, and I.
What's the best mod?
It's very much like a business startup. We got left for 6 months just to do whatever we wanted to do.
The old school team, in my opinion, are one of the best development teams there ever is for any sort of video game at all. The fact that they take like polls with the community and say like, should we do this, should we do that, and the community basically decide what they want in it, and it's like voted upon where like time and resources can be spent. It's genius.
The fact we can talk to the players that directly sort of harkens back to those early days where me and Andrew would go in game and we would see exactly what was happening and what kind of issues people were encountering.
How did he do that?
That almost like pretty reignited, I think, a little bit of what the early Jagex was, what the early RuneScape was, when it was just like a little family company. Because it was a little family of 3 that grew to 5, and those who really wanted the original experience got it, and they got the people, and the people who were making it were those same people who made that experience for them at the time.
When Old School first came, I think most people looked at it and thought, this is going to be a flash in the pan. People are going to get their bit of nostalgia. They're going to leave. We've got 6 months, a bit of work, a bit of fun. You know, everyone's happy. 3 years later, the game is huge. You know, hundreds of thousands of people playing it every day. So I think that was the right call. That was.
All right.
So we had
RuneScape,
classic. Or RuneScape 3 as we were calling it then. You had Old School, and we had 2 healthy communities that looked like they had real longevity in them. So though we'd had some turbulent years, actually I think overall through 2012 and 2013 we came out even stronger.
The community was more positive than it had been for a long time, but there was still one main thing that was still holding us back, and that was gold farming.
He even gave $10,000 of his own money to Wooks when he was disqualified from a Dead Man tournament.
I actually saw that. I think that was really awesome that he gave it out of his own pocket. That's awesome.
While Bot Nuke Day had really cleared out the bots, it hadn't been able to completely get rid of the gold farming problem. So we had to think of new ways to be able to stop this. And we came up with bombs.
One day I came into work and someone in customer support had pinged me an email giving a really interesting idea that was based on another game that they were playing. And that's the simple idea that membership could exist as an in-game item. So someone would buy a membership package, and then rather than consuming it and getting like a couple of months of membership, they would actually put that item in the game as something that they could then swap for in-game wealth. So effectively, I'm buying a couple of months of membership and I'm swapping it with someone else for a bunch of in-game wealth.
We were quite worried because, we'd been through some difficult times adding microtransactions into the game, and this was another kind of monetary thing we were doing with the game. It's meant we were very cautious with how we launched bonds. We took a lot of care in talking to the players and explaining why we were doing it. But actually, I'm really glad it went really well. We've got a lot of players who pay for their membership with bonds. We've significantly cut down the amount of gold farming in the game. And I think both from a player and an economy point of view, it's much healthier overall.
For the first time in years, RuneScape began to see an increase to its player base.
Listening to the community has proven to be successful for us, and we're not going to stop. And in fact, the more feedback we can get, the better.
We started polling the players on the content that they wanted. We had player visits in our studio. We looked to really improve the combat system. We added legacy mode, and we pushed RuneFest further and further.
I really look forward to what we've got coming next for RuneScape. I think we've gone through some tough years and we've now come out the other side, and we're now ready to really kind of push on. And, I want to make sure that we're here celebrating 25 years and celebrating, 50 years.
When I think back to all the different eras of RuneScape, I can see something timeless in there, something that's really special that no other game has. And that's what makes me really confident that RuneScape's going to be around for a hell of a long time yet.
Getting back to our grassroots and dealing with our community again and getting more of that indie vibe back in the studio. I think one of the best things about that has been reconnecting with old members of staff, and even this documentary has given us the opportunity to do that. And of course, the highlight for me...
This is a really good documentary.
...is working with Andrew and Paul again. Like, they are genuinely inspirational people, and being in a brainstorming meeting with Andrew and Paul talking about this kind of cool quest that we're going to do, like putting them in the game as characters, was a real highlight of the year for me. It really reminded me why this place is such a cool place to work. And of course, we managed to get them to RuneFest. The players love them. It doesn't matter how much time goes by. They're always going to be the people that they want the autographs for. I think the highlight for RuneFest was giving Andrew and Paul the Lifetime Achievement Award, because they didn't have any idea of what was going on. It was the last presentation for us to make. We managed to snuck them in at the front of the crowd somehow. They still didn't really twig, and giving them that award, that was my chance to say goodbye. I'm really happy about that.
That's nice.
We made the damn game, people! Come on!
It's hard to believe that the little game I started as a hobby has turned into this, and there's all this big convention with all these people coming from all over the world has come from that.
It's like, actually, we made that one,
awesome.
didn't we? Yeah. It's just completely overwhelming.
The last 15 years of RuneScape have been an adventure to rival any of its quests. From humble beginnings in the Gower's kitchen to a global experience that's become such a huge part of people's lives, RuneScape has brought people together both online and in the real world. It's given people a place to escape, a place to meet, and for Jagex, a place to work. And whether you're a RuneScaper or an old school RuneScaper, it's been a home to us all. Now isn't that lovely?
The depth of the world, the functionality of the world, and the history people have as a shared experience in that world gets deeper and better over time. And that's where a virtual world that has grown and built over 15 years, I think, continues to have such amazing power.
I spent hours and hours and hours playing RuneScape. I was in clans, I made friends, I still make friends, especially off of the Twitch community for RuneScape. I get to travel and hang out with them in real life now, so it's kind of crazy, but it's really an awesome thing.
For me personally, it was a great way for me to get addicted to a game, but not only that, to meet some really amazing people through, common interest in the game itself.
But the number of people you run into where they go, oh yeah, my kid's playing this game. It's just ridiculous.
To think that RuneScape was the driving factor that brought me to college, that inspired my career, and then eventually hired me is just something that I'll always be grateful
Sony
for.
Vegas.
I've been earning revenue online since about 2012. It's allowed me to buy an apartment, and I basically owe that all down to the game.
You never quit RuneScape. You're only ever AFK. You play for the game, you stay for the community.
This is like a lifestyle. I don't know how to describe it. It's part of you, grown up with you. It has evolved, it has developed.
Yeah, how do you say that? How do you say that? Like, back then they actually fought and actually hunted, and they're like Vikings, and Goose is always like, yeah, my grandfather gave me this tooth and it's 5,000 years old, and he bought like all these woodchuckers and bought woods and cut woods with his teeth. Like, how they tell those stories, but now we get to do that like in game. When for WoW, for instance, like you go kill Onyxia or Nefarian. I guess in OSRS, for me, the biggest kill was Scurious. And if I talk about Scurious, you guys could all relate, right? So in a way, we grow up with it, and it's like our second world where we get to experience that old thing we don't get to do, where we like live in castles and hunt and fight people, right? What do you say that? Is that like a online gaming culture? Is that what it is? Our ancestor would be laughing their ass off if we chopped trees in game. Yeah, they'll be chopping in real life, but since we don't get to do it, we do it online, right? So in a way, we get to experience it in a different way. And then through it, there's like, in Korea, there's this guy named Isun-shin Changgun, right? He's one of the Giga Chads, and there's like many stories about it. But now in game, you guys like talk about Bodhi or Wooks or Karazid. Like, they're like internet warriors, basically, like internet legends. Yeah, it's cool. It's called community. Is it called community? Is that the word, guys? What do you say? RuneScape culture, I guess. RuneScape culture.
To be honest, it'd just be crazy trying to think what my life would have been without it, because it'd be so vastly different.
It's a game, but I'm proud of every single second of it.
It means that
Community.
I have a fantastic wife and two beautiful children. It means I have a family. RuneScape means so much more than just Java on a screen. It's now part of our history. It's part of our beginning where we came from.
Its own history.
I play a lot of games, but RuneScape is like right at the top of that list.
me spending so much time on it.
Who's that guy right? He's like
Top of that
looking
list.
over like he's talking about RuneScape again. Is that his dad or something?
So much time on it proves just that, and I think it will always be a part of me.
RuneScape will always, and Jagex will always have a very special part of my heart.
Step bro.
Essentially, games are what this family's all about.
You don't have a day without RuneScape, do you?
No. If the internet goes down, that's a disaster.
Dude, the dad is a gamer. Hello? That's gonna be you guys and me. That's gonna be us, guys. We're gonna be that.
It's absolutely mind-blowing to see how big RuneScape has become, to be honest. I think it's almost too much to take in. The amount of lives it's touched is unbelievable.
It's actually quite daunting to have managed to achieve something so big, because it means anything I do now, I've got a massive sort of bar to compare it against. You know, anything less than absolutely colossal will seem, small. And I certainly hope that my new project and my projects going forward, I'll achieve something this massive again. But it's quite daunting to live up to that legacy.
Since I've left Jagex, what I'm doing is trying to write a fantasy story and finding another way to build a world and eventually give it to the world.
In the game, players are world guardians. They defend RuneScape from all these kind of evil forces that are trying to take it over. I get to do that in real life. Like, this is a baby that we gave birth to, and it's grown up, it's kind of matured over the years, and I kind of get to look after it. I get to make sure it's okay, just like patch up its grazed knees when it's fallen over in the playground, or tell it off when it's doing something a little bit wrong. It is its own self, and it grows in ways that we could never ever have predicted. And that kind of influence on my life is a really strange thing. It means that I never think too much about the future, just focus on the now and the people around me that really make a difference. Because that is RuneScape, and I think that's a kind of life lesson for everybody, really.
Are you dropping frame? Am I dropping frame, guys? No? Okay. Mark ruined what Andrew made, never forget. Oh, is that why you guys were like, do you know about him? Do you know about it? Is that what it was at the start? I've been having buffering all day. Drop frame a lot. Wait, is it Twitch in general that's having buffering problem? YouTube or Kick? Am I having buffering problem? No, Kick is fine. No, YouTube is fine. It's just Twitch. Okay, maybe it's just Twitch. Okay. I'm having it all Twitch streams since 2 days ago. Okay, so it's like L Twitch.